Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to AccidentalMuslims.com. Again, live here at the Academia Library and Resource Center Al Ihlas at Islamia Complex, Educational Complex. And we're talking today with Sufyaan Altalib. Am I saying it correct? And coincidentally, he's talking about education as well. Alhamdulillah, Sufyaan tutors maths and science. He has a passion for it. And alhamdulillah, I think it's two of the subjects which are most underrated. And if I remember the statistics, we placed 138 out of 140, Sufyaan.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
What's happening?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. That was according to the World Economic Forum. So they put out every year a global competitiveness survey, and they ranked the quality of our maths and science education 138 out of 140. So we almost lost, and the quality of overall education at 134 out of 140. So it's really in a dire state.
But there's means for optimism, I hope.
Sadly,
I hope what you are doing can provide.
Sadly not. I mean, I think what I'm doing is I think what I'm doing makes me optimistic. That if I can scale my work and take my work to more people, it definitely can be a solution to the challenge. But you know, in matric, for example, you don't even need a 50% to pass, right? We've got, I think we're probably the only place in the world where 50% is in a pass. Our standards are below than that. It's basically between 30 and 40% to pass. So, but despite that low standard, 75% of matriculants only get a pass. Sure. So 25%, 1 in 4 kids can't even pass a sub 50% pass. And what's important to look at is your bachelor's passes, because if you get a bachelor pass, that basically allows you to study further at the university. And about 28% of kids get bachelor passes. So we're not really giving out good results.
Sure. So how are we going to tackle this problem? What's some of your suggestions as to how we can combat this?
Look, you need to involve multiple stakeholders. I think government needs to do a better job. But it's not just on the government. I mean, people like myself need to take our work, to wider environments and see how we can benefit students that are in underprivileged areas. And then we need to look at how do we help students from a subject perspective. So how do we help them get better maths marks, physics marks, accounting marks, whatever. But also how do we, and this will help them get better marks as well, but it also help them overall in life. How do we mentor them? How do we guide students correctly? How do we give them direction in their life? Because a lot of the times, particularly people coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, maybe people that come with more, advantaged backgrounds, they just lack direction, they lack purpose, they don't know where they're going. And so that makes taking your education serious or taking your work seriously more challenging. I think also something like resources, equipping people with better resources. So many children don't have access to the required resources to do well. Things such as simple as past papers. I mean, that's something I do. I put together a past paper book, which has like all of the papers for the last 8 years or so for matrics, and I give those to all of my matric students. I give them a past paper book for paper 1, paper 2, and a memo. And working through past papers is one of the best tools that you can do. And you realize when you go into underprivileged schools how few kids actually have material to work through.
Sure. So material resources are one aspect of assisting maybe perhaps in getting our figure from 138 maybe to 100 initially. But tell me, other than the resources and the physical sort of talents, what sort of characteristic would epitomize a top maths or science student, or just a top student in general?
I think, resilience is definitely one of them. And in fact, I give a quote sheet to all of my students at their first or second lesson, which really epitomizes, I think, a lot of quotes for life. And the first quote is a ayah of the Quran, which basically goes as follows in English: Allah will only change the condition of people once they change within them, what is within themselves. So any change has got to come with yourself. If you want to do well in maths or science and you aren't doing well at the moment, obviously you need to make some form of change. The second is what the mind can believe and achieve. What the mind can believe and conceive it, or what the mind can believe and conceive it will achieve, which is Napoleon Hill. And a lot of people don't realize that before you actually get things in reality, you've got to conceptualize things. I mean, your Accidental Muslims has done so well, and I'm sure yourself and Khalil conceptualize all of this before you actually made it into reality, right? So it starts there. And a trick I used to do when I was in high school, I actually used to write up a mock report. So, every school has their own ways of giving a report, and I'd like, Sufyaan Altalib, term 1, there was all of my subjects, and I'd paste this mock report up where I studied, and I'd see this mock report every day. And my marks that I actually ended up getting mimicked what I'd envisioned in myself. And the third is a quote that I got from Malcolm Gladwell, which is in his book Outliers. And the quote goes as follows. It says, "We sometimes think of being good at mathematics as an innate ability, but to Schoenfeld, just for context, is a mathematics professor, it's not so much as ability as attitude. You master mathematics, and you could say anything really. You master mathematics if you're willing to try. Success is a function of persistence and endogenous, and the willingness to work hard for 22 minutes on a problem that most people will give up on after 30 seconds. And the context of that is Schoenfeld's a math professor. He gave his class a problem. Most of the classes gave up after 30 seconds. They said, you can't be done. Someone sat for it for 22 minutes and solved it, right? And the fourth quote is a quote from Einstein, which says that what the mind can conceive and from Einstein, he said that it's not that I'm smart, it's just that I sit with problems longer. And so that's something we don't realize. People like Einstein and Khwarizmi and all these supposed geniuses, they really spend hours and hours. In fact, I watched a documentary on Einstein, which basically spoke about his theory. It took him his whole life to get to the theory of relativity equals mc squared. You know, so almost everybody knows E equals mc squared, but I think few people know the decades it took him to get to that. And the final one is a quote from Rumi, which basically says that if you travel without a guide, you need 200 days for a 2-day journey. I think that's the role that I like to play as a tutor, and I think I touch on the concept of mentorship, is that we need to guide young people, because without that guide, it's going to take them, it's going to be a lot harder and a lot more difficult for them to get to where they are. And then I touch on something like resilience earlier, and I just want to mention a story that really touched me. And in fact, last year I wrote an article about what I thought on the matric results, and in that article I put Tilsha Donis' story. She's really an amazing person, someone that I really admired. I mean, she matriculated with 7 distinctions for all of her subjects, but she comes from the heart of Mannenberg, you know, very disadvantaged background, raised by a grandmother and a mother, you know, in a 2-bedroom flat in an area with gangsterism, but she was lucky to attend the TLC college, which provided her with guidance and resources. And she put her head down and she just worked and overcame all of those obstacles. And in fact, I interviewed her on my radio show on Radio 786 on Education Matters. And she got 5 bursaries when she matriculated. She picked a bursary. She's now studying towards C at Stellenbosch. In her first year, she made Dean's Merit List. So it's really so amazing to see how you can actually overcome obstacles if you set yourself to it, no matter what they seem. And how education really opens doors. I mean, you can think, you know, 5, 7, 8 years from now, she'll be a CA. Sure. And inshallah, and hopefully be impacting so many more people in the community.
SubhanAllah, persistence, conceptualizing, setting your goals, so to speak. These are lofty words, but alhamdulillah, I mean, we spoke earlier about biographies and certain so-called successful people, but we see the end product. Okay. I mean, you use Cristiano Ronaldo as an example, but we see the end product, Ballon d'Or winner 5 times, all that. But the story that leads up to it, it's similar across all sorts of biographies. And not only with the superstars, you can relate it to businessmen, schools, teachers, in our very own community. Any comment in that regard?
Yeah, I like the Ronaldo story, in fact, because sometimes schools invite me to give motivational talks to the assemblies, and so I generally give the Ronaldo example because everybody knows him and it's easy to relate to. And so I normally ask the students, I say, well, you know, who's heard of Cristiano Ronaldo? And everybody puts their hands, you know, we've all heard of Ronaldo. And I said, okay, well, you know, who's 13? Yeah, and everyone's like, we're all, you know, 13. I say, well, who of you still live with your parents? And 80% of people say, well, we still do. I say, well, you know, at 13, Ronaldo wasn't living with his parents anymore. He left his little island off the coast of Portugal, moves to Lisbon so he can join, you know, the academy. And that's tough as a child without your parents, and you know, those are the days before you had WhatsApp and all of these things. So his only communication he had was once a week. He could phone his mother from those old landline phones. And then he works hard for 5 years and he plays against Man United, and Sir Alex sees his talent and brings him over to Manchester. And he was a skinny, I don't know if people have seen pictures of Ronaldo at 18, but he was really just a skinny guy. And Sir Alex always joked, you know, Ronaldo came to United as a boy and, you know, he left as a man. But he put his head down, he worked there to bulk himself up, and until today, you know, he's in his 30s, and you would never say he's in his 30s, he's still, to keep that peak performance, a lot goes into maintaining it. You know, Sir Alex remarked that he was always first to come into training, and when Sir Alex got to training, he found Ronaldo there. When he left, Ronaldo was still there. So I think it just gives young people an understanding that, you know what, all I just see now is all the money he's making and this flashy lifestyle that he has, but I'm not actually seeing the hard work that got in. And a lot of young people are, I think, deluded and not realizing how much you actually have to put in to get results.
And I think you touched on it as well. it's not only personalities in our community and superstar personalities, so to speak, but our very own Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I mean, his story epitomizes perseverance, if anything else, you know. So I think that is one of the models we should approach in the way we tackle education, I would think as well. But another thing, whenever we speak about education, we speak from the child's perspective. But a lot of time behind that child, there are parents and adults, whether it's teachers, principals, or the parents. Maybe advice for the parents or those adults?
Look, parents play a pivotal role. In fact, on my radio show that I did last year on 786, we did a whole show just on the role of parents. Parents play a really pivotal role. I think parents need to get involved in the children's lives.
I want to qualify that as well, because we might be excluding those that do not have parents as well. So it's guardians and uncles, aunts, those
the family,
custodians.
Yeah, custodians. No, definitely a good point. I think it's basically being involved and being aware, knowing when is your children writing their tests, right? And allowing them to be students. I was very fortunate that my mother and father gave me everything that I needed to be a full-time student. So they were understanding if I was writing a test in the week, you know, they wouldn't burden me with things, they wouldn't force me to do things, they would just allow me to spend that weekend in my room studying, prepping for the test. And you'll find a lot of parents don't do that, you know, it'll be exam time, and I had this case, you know, where, you know, a student is writing a test in the week and they don't come to class in the weekend because they went away for the weekend, for example. But, you know, you're supposed to be preparing for that. So a lot of parents are not aware that being a student is a full-time responsibility. It takes a lot out of me, and I need to support my child as best as I can to allow him to be a student.
Well, before we move off that topic, part of that support is a good diet you mentioned.
Yes, I did mention
Maybe tell our viewers about how diet impacts on this.
You know, diet's really important. I think you mentioned when we did the podcast some of, how do you actually improve as a student? And I said it's a holistic thing, you know, you have to exercise. Exercise is so important, and I was lucky as well throughout high school, you know, to have a school that gave facilities, you know, for you to exercise, particularly being young, you have a lot of energy that you need to take out. And diet's important. I think the main thing is just, I always tell the students, I said, you know, if you have an unhealthy diet, just do this one thing. Just drink water. Cut out all sugary drinks. If you just drink water, at least that'll take you half of the way. We eat way too much sugar, and that doesn't allow the brain to function optimally. We need to have cut out our sugar and drink a lot more water.
No, shukran. To the viewers, the audience, look out for the full podcast with Sufyaan. If you haven't noticed it, and if you have seen our previous episodes, we're creating this education vibe, inshallah. So there's lots of things coming with regards to education, because here at AccidentalMuslims.com, we truly believe that education matters. If anything else, education matters, because not only will it build a household, it will build a community, it will build a nation. So we're going to be concentrating a lot of our episodes coming up in the next few weeks, and hopefully if one or two projects comes off on education. So thank you to Sufyaan for contributing to that. Top Tutors, I think, is the name of Sufyaan's maths and science tutorship program or company. I'm not sure what it's the makeup of it. So if your son needs education in terms of maths and science support, look up Sufyaan. Top Tutors in the Athlone area. And Sufyaan, assalamu alaikum. Viewers, have a lovely day, and remember, live with purpose.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.